pretty nervous, but I think we'll be all right. I talked to God before I came up here and asked him to guide me and lead me through this and let me be his vessel for this message. My name is Maxie, and I am a very grateful recovering alcoholic. Amen. And thanks to Alcoholics Anonymous and the God of my understanding, I haven't had to take a drink since April 23rd, 2018. This is my second time speaking. I went down and spoke at the Colony, and I was just a little bit more nervous then. I'm a little more comfortable here because I'm here all the time. I'm supposed to tell you about myself, what happened, and what I'm like now. I had a pretty normal childhood, I think. Also, I'm a big sap, so I have to bear with me because I'll probably lose it a couple times. But my parents were very, very loving people. My brother and I didn't want for a whole lot. We moved to a golf course when I was in the 6th grade, and moved to Fayetteville when I was 4 years old. I was born in South Carolina. And, I played a lot of golf, had a lot of friends, cut up all the time. And as I started getting about 13 years old, there was a group of us that lived in the neighborhood there, and we started experimenting with weed and started experimenting with drinking, and we lived right there on the 9th fairway, so it was a pretty big place for us. So we started playing flashlight tag. So that's what we said. As we were beginning to raid our parents' liquor cabinets, and a little bit of everything. I mean, we just poured it in a cup, and we'd go out and get high and drink and stay out there till whenever, and then go back home. I think I probably knew I was an alcoholic all my life. I just didn't want to admit it. As I turned 14, they had a couple little teeny bop clubs around town, and all of us would run up there, and we'd go out and get high and drink. And one of the guys that I hung out with in junior high school, he looked like he was about 23 years old, and he'd go buy us a bunch of beer, and we'd go get drunk and high and come back to this teeny bopper club and hang out all night. And it just for a 14-year-old who had a half pint sack that he carried with him every time he went to a club or to a party, and would hide it in the bathroom. And I never really thought anything about it until I kind of look back on it now. And I was drinking straight liquor, 14 years old. And you see on commercials last time, there's a lake in Fayetteville called Fantasy Lake. Well, when I was 14, 15 years old, it was called Permastone. And I've worked ever since I was tall enough to put my hands up in the air to a lawnmower. And the lake was great. And people weren't allowed to drink out there. You had a lot of military people out there, and we would always go out in the parking lot and bust them and take their beer. And me and the guy that I worked with, Michael, we'd just stock it up until the end of the day, and we'd wear it out. And I hooked up with a lifeguard that was there. She was about 20 years old, and I guess she kind of raped me more than anything else. And I found out about alcohol, drugs, and women. So athletics kind of went by the wayside. And, I also, like I said, we lived on a golf course, and I was a cart boy at the club. And, of course, that was about the time Miller Lite came out, and we'd always have these tournaments, and they had these little pony bottles, and my boss was a colonel in the military, and he was like a second father to me. He treated me so good I can't even believe it. And you know, he didn't care if we drank. I mean, I drank with him. And so me and the guys that were working on the golf course, I mean, like I said, we just, we stockpiled liquor, had cooler beer all the time down in the car shed, and drinking was part of my life as far back as I can remember. Then I got into high school, and me and my best friend in high school, he's no longer with us. God rest his soul. He OD'd. But we started cutting firewood. His father owned a construction company, and so we both of us were in ICT, which is early work release, and so he had worked with his father, and I worked at the golf course, and on the side we cut firewood, and we go to wherever his dad had land that we could go, mutilate, and that's pretty much what we did. And we always had a bottle of Seagram 7 in the truck, and always had joints going, and look back on that, that's not real smart, drinking liquor and smoking dope and using chainsaws. But that's kind of the way my life went. I never did cocaine until I got to college. I always had a girlfriend, and I had a long girlfriend in college or in high school, and then I met another girl and was dating her when I went to college, and I went to East Carolina, which was one of the top party schools in the United States at the time, and probably still is. And I lived in a freshman dorm, which was, if you've ever seen Animal House, it was pretty much exactly like that. And I missed one thing. I got my first DUI when I was 18 years old. I got my license very early, and so at 18 I was a senior in high school. So that's my trouble with the law began. I got my second year in college. I convinced my parents that I needed to move out of the dorm. Before I get with that, blackouts started in college because the extent that we drank was crazy. We'd get the cheapest half gallon we could get, Aristocrat, gin, vodka. It didn't matter what it was. We'd drink it in shots, and it was, like I said, it was insane. But I thought I was having fun. Second year in college, I met a girl, and I dated her for a long time, and we started doing cocaine together, and cocaine was all over the place at college. It is everywhere. But I started running with a crowd, and met up with this guy from Florida, and he started bringing me loads of cocaine. I thought I'd hit the lottery. He'd bring up a big load and come back and see me in about a month or two. And so between the drugs and the alcohol, everything just progressively got worse. So I started selling cocaine in my third and fourth year, and I got busted in August of '85, and that was a real stumbling block in my life. I was majored in leisure system studies, basically resort management. My father almost had a heart attack. So anyway, I kind of lost my thought there for a second. Sorry about that. But I was doing an internship at Pinehurst Country Club, and at the end of the internship, they asked me to stay. Well, my court stuff had not been settled yet, and I was supposed to walk. And my dad spent a lot of money, and come down to it, I was at Myrtle Beach at a friend of mine's wedding, and my parents came down, and I knew something was wrong. And they said, well, they've changed their mind. They've added a conspiracy charge onto you. And so I was looking at 14 years minimum, and it shook me up pretty bad. So I had to go to Pinehurst and tell them what happened, and they decided to keep me. And I had to go away for about 6 months, and the last 3.5 months of my time was I was on work release, and so the guy would come get me and take me back to work, or take me back to my little condo down the street down there. Did this 7 days a week, and anyway, that passed, and I kind of calmed down. Started dating another girl, and that was not a good idea. But my drinking always continued. Drug use quit. And I dated this girl for, I guess, about 5 years. And it was a disaster. It didn't need to happen. But, you know, I thought that somehow or another I ended up thinking I was going to marry this girl. And we ended up splitting up. And it was a pretty nasty split up. And so I started, I ramped it up a little bit. And my drinking became completely out of control. Started using drugs again. And two particular times, I taught golf, and I had, one of the times I was 3 hours late, and I had all the video equipment in my car. And you know, golf schools are a high dollar thing, and people paid a lot of money to come here. And so anyway, as you can possibly imagine, it was not real good on me. And so right before this time, I don't want to miss that, I got my second DWI. I was so drunk, I stopped at the stop sign in the front of the hotel and passed out. Woke up to a cop sticking his arm in, put the car in park. But Pinehurst decided that in order for me to keep my job, they wanted me to go to rehab. And I wouldn't have any part of it. So, you know, I had a great job. I was probably 23 years old. I was making about $60,000 a year. And I decided to quit because I wasn't going to rehab. I wasn't an alcoholic. So I left there and I went, sold cars for a year. Hated that job. Never hated a job as much as I hated that in all my life. And but on April Fools of '94, I got my third DWI. So the guy that owned the car dealership loaned me the money to get out of the ticket, and under the assumption that I would stay there for a year. So I did that. And the day that it came up, a year, I stood up in my office, took my pictures off the wall, walked into his office, and I said, I can't do this. I cannot lie for a living. And so right after I was working at Brooks, and one of the guys that I was working with, he ran Brooks, which is where the Beltree's at. And I started working there, let's see, I guess around the end of 94, well, about 95 to 98. And that's when things began to really change. Cocaine use became a daily thing. I basically turned into a vampire. I lived at night. You know, but I always felt like Yeah, the whole time I was drinking, even though I know now after looking back on it, I know it was out of control, I always felt like I had one hand on the reins. And I later would find that I would lose that hold. I finally quit Brooks, and I started teaching a little bit of golf again, and slowed down a little bit. And then they opened the sports page, and I guess altogether I worked at the sports page from '99 to 2006, and we really partied. I mean, partied every night. I mean, I had dope in my pocket every day of my life for probably counting Brooks time, I'd say 10, 15 years. I was doing cocaine every day and drinking to blackout stage several times a week. The first sports page was in Cam Square, which is when you first get off Highway 1 down there. It was a small building, and it was a really good bar. Everybody in there partied like rock stars, and it just escalated constantly. Well, once Sports Page closed in 2006, I quit doing drugs. I couldn't afford it, but I think I knew it was time to stop, and so I did. And it really, I was kind of out of the nighttime scene, so I really didn't struggle with it. And on July 4th, 2008, I got my fourth DWI. I stopped by Pinecrest. I was working at Theo's at the time. I stopped by Pinecrest, saw Carl Wood, and I drank a couple big shots, and I said, Carl, I said, maybe I should ride on with you. He said, nah, you're fine. He said, I've seen you a lot worse. So I got in the car, drove home, got DWI. Now I had the blower in my car, and, it is what it is. So I started construction on my bar. I guess it was early summer 2009, and opened Super Bowl 2010. I had a blower in my car. The second week I was open, I blew out my back. So my back, I was scheduled to have back surgery. I couldn't drink because I couldn't start my car if I could. So the first 3 years of the bar, my drinking was not bad. But that was soon to change. While I was working and blew out my back, I was in so much pain, and I was eating Percocet 10s like they were chiclets. And finally, through the shots and the Pilates, the pain in my back stopped. Thank God. My backer, he was nice enough to shove his wife down my throat when we started this thing, and that didn't work out too good because she didn't know anything about the restaurant business, and we didn't play well together at all. And I unfortunately used the C word on her, and so my friendship with my backer, who was at the time one of my dearest friends, has been probably forever damaged. And I hate that, but that's the way it is. February 6, 2013, my life changed forever. My dad died, And it devastated me. And I didn't see that coming. I don't know why. I think maybe because I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to him. And that hurt me bad. 6 months later, I got cancer. And for any of you who have ever been through that, it's the most scariest thing that I don't even know how to explain it. When you hear that word, it just rocks your world. So my drinking escalated. To the point where I don't know if I was trying to drink it away. I don't know if I was trying to get courage. I don't know what it was. After my breakup with the girl that caused me to lose my job at Pinehurst, I was already in love with her. I ended up starting dating her bridesmaid. And by the grace of God, she's still with me today. She went through hell. I could never apologize enough for that. So, March of 2014, I had my prostate cut out because my cancer was very aggressive. And I finally settled on a surgeon up at Wake Forest Baptist Hospital, and he told me, I went to several different places, and he finally convinced me that I had prostate overload and that I needed to go ahead and get this done if I wanted it gone. And, so I said, okay. So, any of you that know anything about prostate cancer, for a 51-year-old man, it pretty much ruins everything. It completely took my manhood away from me, and I'll be honest with you, I couldn't handle it. I pretty much lost my mind. And my drinking really went crazy. I became very, very depressed and very, very angry. And I drank angry. I used to drink coffee in the morning with Bailey's in it, and I didn't really abuse that. I used it more for the flavor. It was, I really didn't pour that much in it. Honestly, I really didn't. But after this, I decided that I was going to start drinking vodka in the morning. And so, what I would do is I would get so drunk in the afternoon that I had to be pretty much helped out of my own bar and taken home, and I'd pass out. And then when I'd wake up, I'd get up and get drunk again. And I isolated myself and Kathy from our friends. Nobody wanted to hang out with me because I was drunk all the time. And I can't really blame them. Well, I woke up one day in May of 2016, and I looked myself in the mirror, and I said, "My God, Maxie, what are you doing? You're dying. You're killing yourself." I was overweight. I weighed well over 200 pounds, and as you guys know, I'm 5'7". I don't need to weigh 200 some pounds. I get a chuckle every now and then when I'm looking for a T-shirt. I'll find one of the shirts that I was wearing at the time, which are double X's. They pretty much, it looked like a tent. They look like a tent on top of me now. Well, I quit drinking for 11 and a half months. But I knew I was going to drink again. I knew it. There was no doubt in my mind when I quit drinking that I was never going to drink again. I think I did it to prove it to myself that I could do it. I don't know. Well, that day finally came. And I had bought I kept telling myself that the thing I really missed was the red wine with steak. And I bought some really, really good wine, and I had it, and I'd been storing it. I bet I took the bottle out 25 times. And I think Kathy was at PGA show. I don't remember. I sent her a picture. I said, I don't want you to freak out, but I'm going to drink this bottle of wine. You know, I talk about I've never relapsed before in meetings in the morning, and you know what? I pray to God every single morning when I wake up that He never lets me take another drink, because what happened to me when I started drinking again was the most unbelievable thing that had ever. I knew it was happening. I knew something was wrong. I mean, Kathy would go, doesn't this bother you when I'm falling down drunk on the floor. People carry me in the house. I was pathetic. And I'm not a mean person. And I've got such a big heart. And I became so mean and so angry. Cussing everybody out, trying to work. I'm trying to work and I'm drunk. People are trying to talk to me. People are trying to talk to her. People are trying to talk to my friends. They're trying to have these mini interventions with me. And I'd quit for a couple of days. Y'all don't know what you're talking about. I got this. I was completely out of control. It was like a raging locomotive, man. And I was just, like it says right here. No words can tell the loneliness and despair I found in the bitter morass of self-pity. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master. And it was exactly that. And so I kept trying to stop. I wanted to stop. But yet I'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the first thing I could think about doing was getting to that bar and getting to that bottle. I was hiding bottles of vodka in my garage in a golf bag, and it was 100 degrees out there, and I got 2 freezers in my garage. That's how sick my mind was at the time. I would go to work in the morning. I wouldn't even turn the lights on at 6 a.m. And I'd go straight to the cooler and pull that bottle of grape vodka out and set it on the mat and look myself in the mirror, and I'd look at it and I'd go, Maxie, don't do it. Don't do it. You know what's going to happen. And that bottle would say, fuck that. And away I would go. And I couldn't stop it. I never understood alcoholism. And again, like I said, I thought I always had one hand on the reins, and I had totally lost all control. So I'm home one day, And I go in my bedroom. It was pretty close to the time, April 23rd. April 23rd was a Monday, so it was the weekend before. And I got on my hands and knees in my bedroom and I cried. And I begged. I said, God, please, I'm going to die. I said, you have got to help me. And I don't know how long I was back there. I have no idea. So I got in bed and I went to sleep. I think it was Wednesday. I'm in my kitchen. I'd already been driven home. I got a bottle of vodka out on the counter. I'm sitting in my kitchen, and I have a TV above my refrigerator, and this commercial came on. I've never seen it before. I've never seen it again. And it was talking to me, and I turned and looked at that television, and I don't remember word for word what the man said, but he was talking to me. And he basically said I was an alcoholic, I was a drug addict. He said, he said, if you're struggling with alcoholism, struggling with drugs, he said, you don't have to call me. Call somebody. It may change your life. It may save your life. And this guy in this commercial said that he quit his job and started this rehab agency. I swear to you, I've looked for this commercial. I have looked for it. I can't find it. I don't think it was a commercial. I just know that my prayers got answered. So on Wednesday, no, it was Tuesday this happened, because Wednesday I was at work, and I was drunk, and it was around lunchtime, and I called my brother. My brother's a recovered prescription drug addict. He was a golf pro and got in a very bad automobile accident and got hooked on pain pills. And I called him and I said, Todd, I'm in trouble, man. I can't stop drinking. And he said, I know somebody at Fellowship Hall. I'm going to call him and get the number. He said, I'll call you back in a minute. He gave me a friend of ours' phone number who lives down in Wilmington. He's one of us. He almost died from alcohol. And so he's talking to me, and he starts telling me about his sponsor. And he said, yeah, my sponsor, Warren Dabbs. And I said, Ducey? He said, yes. I said, give me Ducey's phone number. Now, Ducey and I used to party like rock stars, man. I mean, I'm telling you, it wasn't no joke. I haven't talked to Ducey in 15 years. And all of a sudden, all this is happening. So I get Ducey on the phone. He talks to me for about an hour, hour and a half. And he talked me off the fence. And I'm going to tell you something. This guy right here would have never gone to rehab. Never. Ever. And he talked me into it. Or God talked me into it. God sent me to rehab. God brought Ducey in my life. God brought me here. And y'all brought me back to God. If you're new and this is the first time that you're in here, or you're struggling with this, your answers are in this book. Your answer is there on that wall. Your answer is in this fellowship. I went to rehab, and and I have nothing but the highest praise for Fellowship Hall. I did not understand the progressiveness of alcoholism. You know, if you had told me 3 or 4 years ago that I'd be sitting up here talking to you, I'd have told you you're crazy as hell. This is absolutely the best thing that's ever happened to me. I have no words for the gratitude that I feel. You could not fit it in this room. I am amazed of the love in this room. I am amazed of the God presence in this room. I'm going to read 2 things from this book, and I'm going to sit down. And this is how I try to live my life. I am a different person. It says you're supposed to have a psychic change. Well, I can guarantee you that I've had a psychic change. Like I said, I've always been a kind person. I have a big heart. But I pray for other people more than I pray for myself. I didn't know how to pray. I never prayed for nothing in my life, unless it was selfish or to get me out of trouble. You know, I've always believed in God. God saved my life twice. And I'll be a fool to ignore that. First one's on 417. And acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of life unacceptable to me, and I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly what it's supposed to be at that moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing, happens in God's world by mistake. Until I could accept my alcoholism, I could not stay sober. Unless I accept life completely on life's terms, I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as what needs to be changed in me and my attitude. That is powerful. That is how I try to live my life today. I try to go out of my way to be kind, to not hurt anybody's feelings. I still got to work on my road rage a little bit, but I'm getting there. But, you know, that woman back there, she'll tell you, I've never apologized for anything. I apologize to her now. If I say something out of the way, it eats me alive. This, what I'm getting ready to read, is floored me when I read this. This is from the Keys of the Kingdom. AA is not a plan for recovery that can be finished and done with. It is a way of life. Hold on a second. It is a way of life, and the challenge contained in its principles is great enough to keep any human being striving for as long as he lives. We cannot outgrow this plan. As arrested alcoholics, we must have a program for living that allows for limitless expansion. Keeping one foot in front of the other is essential for maintaining our arrestment. Others may idle in a retrogressive groove without too much danger, but retrogression can spell death for us. However, this isn't as rough as it sounds, as we do become grateful for the necessity that makes us toe the line, and we find we are compensated for a consistent effort by the countless dividends we receive. A complete change takes place in our approach to life. Where we used to run from the responsibility, we find ourselves accepting it with gratitude that we can successfully shoulder it. Instead of wanting to escape some perplexing problem, we experience the thrill of challenge and the opportunity it affords for another application of AA techniques, and we find ourselves tackling it with surprising vigor. The last 15 years of my life have been rich and meaningful. I've had my share of problems, heartaches, and disappointments because that is life. But I also have known a great deal of joy and peace that is the handmaiden of an inner freedom. I have a wealth of friends, and with my AA friends, an unusual quality of fellowship. For to these people I am truly related, first through mutual pain and despair, and later through mutual objectives and newfound faith and hope. And as the years go by, working together, sharing our experiences with one another, and also sharing a mutual trust, understanding and love, without strings, without obligations, we acquire relationships that are unique and priceless. There is no more aloneness, with that awful ache so deep in the heart of every alcoholic that nothing before could ever reach it. That ache is gone and never need return again. Now there is a sense of belonging, of being wanted and needed and loved. In return for a bottle and a hangover, we have been given the keys of the kingdom. I'm Maxie, and I'm still an alcoholic. And I thank you for letting me talk to you.